Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. The first one is the Tittle story, and it starts like this. I never thought I'd be fighting for my family's land against a group of power-hungry suburbanites, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. My name's Jack Cooper, and this is the story of how I took on a homeowners association that tried to steal my great-grandfather's homestead. It all started on a crisp autumn morning. I was sipping coffee on the porch of the old farmhouse, watching the sun rise over the rolling hills of our property. The land had been in my family for generations, passed down from my great-grandfather who'd built the place with his own two hands back in 1892. The sound of tires crunching on gravel pulled me from my thoughts. A sleek black SUV was winding its way up our long driveway, kicking up dust as it approached. I set my mug down, curious about who'd be visiting at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. The vehicle came to a stop, and out stepped a man and woman, both dressed like they were heading to a corporate board meeting rather than visiting a farm. The man, tall and thin with graying hair, adjusted his tie as he walked towards me. The woman, shorter with a severe blonde bob, clutched a leather portfolio to her chest. "Good morning," I called out, trying to keep my tone friendly despite the unease growing in my gut. "Can I help you folks?" The man plastered on a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Mr. Cooper, I presume? I'm Richard Hawthorne, president of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association. This is my associate, Karen Blythe." I stood up, my brow furrowing. "Homeowners Association? I think you must be lost. This property isn't part of any development." Karen cleared her throat. "Actually, Mr. Cooper, that's why we're here. There seems to have been some confusion regarding the boundaries of our community." "Confusion?" I echoed, not liking where this was heading. Richard nodded, his smile turning sympathetic in a way that made my skin crawl. "Yes, you see, we've recently discovered that your property actually falls within the limits of the Whispering Pines development. It appears there was an oversight when the community was established 20 years ago." I blinked, certain I must have misheard. "Excuse me? This land has been in my family for over a century. It's not part of any development." "We understand this must come as a shock," Karen said, her voice sickly sweet. "But we have documentation showing that your land was included in the original plans for Whispering Pines. It seems the previous homeowner association board simply overlooked your property." I felt my temper rising but forced myself to stay calm. "That's impossible. This farm predates your entire community by nearly 100 years. There's no way it could be part of your development." Richard held up a hand. Now, Mr. Cooper, let's not get upset. We're simply here to inform you of the situation and discuss how we can move forward." "Move forward?" I repeated, my voice rising despite my best efforts. "There's nothing to move forward from. This is my land. End of story." Karen opened her portfolio and pulled out a stack of papers. "We have copies of the original development plans here, as well as more recent surveys. They clearly show your property as part of Whispering Pines." I stared at the documents, my mind reeling. This couldn't be happening. Those have to be fake. There's no way my great-grandfather's homestead is part of your cookie-cutter suburb. Richard's smile faltered for a moment before he regained his composure. "I assure you, Mr. Cooper, these are official documents. Now, we understand this is a lot to take in, but we need to discuss bringing your property up to homeowner association standards." "Homeowner association standards?" I sputtered. "This is a working farm." Karen nodded, her expression one of faux sympathy. "Yes, and that's going to be a problem. Agricultural use isn't permitted within Whispering Pines. We'll need to talk about transitioning your property to approved residential use." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. These people weren't just claiming my land was part of their development. They wanted to fundamentally change it. "You can't be serious. This farm has been here for generations. You can't just waltz in and tell me to stop farming." Richard's tone turned stern. "Mr. Cooper, I understand this is upsetting, but the fact is, your property is subject to homeowner association rules and regulations. We're willing to work with you on a timeline for bringing everything into compliance, but make no mistake, changes will need to be made." I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my anger. "Look, I don't know what kind of scam you're trying to pull here, but it won't work. This land belongs to me and my family. It's not part of your development, and it never will be." Karen's eyes narrowed. "I'd advise against taking such a confrontational stance, Mr. Cooper. The homeowner association has significant legal resources at its disposal. It would be in your best interest to cooperate." "Is that a threat?" I asked, my voice low. Richard quickly interjected. "Not at all. We're simply trying to resolve this situation amicably. Why don't we give you some time to process this information? We'll be in touch to schedule a formal meeting where we can discuss the next steps." I crossed my arms. "The next step is you two leaving my property. Now?" They exchanged a look before Richard nodded. "Very well. We'll be in contact soon, Mr. Cooper. I hope you'll reconsider your position once you've had time to think things over." I watched in stunned silence as they got back into their SUV and drove away. As the dust settled, I sank onto the porch steps, my mind racing. How could this be happening? There had to be some mistake, or worse, some sort of elaborate fraud. One thing was certain, I wasn't going to let these homeowner association vultures take my family's land without a fight. Little did I know, the battle that lay ahead would test me in ways I never imagined. As soon as the homeowner association representatives were out of sight, I rushed inside to call my sister, Emma. She was a lawyer in the city, and if anyone could help me make sense of this mess, it was her. The phone rang 3 times before she picked up. "Jack, it's not like you to call this early. Everything okay?" I took a deep breath. We've got a problem. A big one." I spent the next 10 minutes recounting my bizarre encounter with Richard and Karen. Emma listened quietly, only interrupting occasionally to ask for clarification. When I finished, she was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Okay, first things first, don't panic. This sounds fishy, but we need to approach it calmly and logically." "Calmly?" I exclaimed. They're trying to steal our family's land." I know, she soothed, "but getting worked up won't help. We need to gather information and figure out exactly what we're dealing with." I ran a hand through my hair. "Where do we even start?" "Well, they mentioned original development plans and recent surveys. We need to get our hands on those documents. Did they leave copies with you?" I shook my head, then remembered she couldn't see me. "No, they just showed them to me briefly." "All right, that's our first step then. We need to formally request copies of all the documentation they're basing their claim on. In the meantime, I want you to gather every scrap of paper we have related to the farm's history and ownership. Deeds, tax records, anything you can find." "Okay," I said, already mentally cataloging where those documents might be. "What about legal representation? Should we be lawyering up?" Emma hesitated. "Let's not jump the gun just yet. I can do some initial research and maybe consult with a colleague who specializes in property law. But let's see what we're dealing with before we start throwing money at attorneys." I nodded, feeling a bit calmer now that we had the beginnings of a plan. "Thanks, Em. I don't know what I'd do without you." "Hey, it's my land too," she said softly. "We're in this together, big brother. Now, start digging through those old files. I'll make some calls and see what I can find out about this Whispering Pines development and their homeowner association." After hanging up, I headed to the attic where we kept most of the old family documents. The space was dusty and cluttered, filled with boxes of memories and forgotten knickknacks. I spent the next few hours sifting through yellowed papers and faded photographs, piecing together the documented history of our family's land. By mid-afternoon, I had assembled a stack of relevant documents: the original land grant from 1892, subsequent deeds showing the property passing from one generation to the next, tax records going back decades, and even some old survey maps. As I was organizing everything, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Got some info. Call when you can." I dialed her number immediately. "What did you find out?" "Well, I've got good news and bad news," Emma said. "The good news is, I don't think their claim holds water. The bad news is, they seem pretty determined to push this." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "I did some digging into the Whispering Pines development. It was established in 1998, and you're right, our land isn't part of it. At least, it wasn't supposed to be." "So what's their angle?" I asked. Emma sighed. "It looks like they're trying to exploit a clerical error. When the original plans for Whispering Pines were filed, there was a mistake in the property description. It used an outdated survey that incorrectly included a portion of our land." I felt my anger rising again. "Are you kidding me? They're basing this whole thing on a paperwork screw-up?" "Essentially, yes. But here's where it gets tricky. That error has been on the books for over 20 years now. They're likely going to argue that since it wasn't caught and corrected at the time, it's now valid." I shook my head in disbelief. "That's insane. How can they possibly think that'll hold up?" "It probably won't," Emma reassured me. "But they seem to be banking on either intimidating us into compliance or dragging this out in court until we can't afford to fight anymore." "So what do we do?" I asked, feeling a mix of frustration and determination. "We fight," Emma said firmly. "I've already reached out to a colleague who specializes in property disputes. She's willing to take a look at our case. In the meantime, we need to formally respond to the homeowner association's claim." We spent the next hour outlining our strategy. Emma would draft a letter refuting the homeowner association's assertion and demanding they provide all documentation related to their claim. Meanwhile, I would continue gathering evidence of our long-standing ownership and use of the land. As we wrapped up our call, Emma added, "Oh, and Jack, document everything from here on out. Every interaction with the homeowner association, every conversation, everything. We might need it later." "Got it," I replied. "Thanks again, Em. I don't know what I'd do without you." "That's what little sisters are for," she chuckled. "We'll get through this, Jack. They picked the wrong family to mess with." After hanging up, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. These homeowner association bullies thought they could push us around, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. The Coopers had weathered storms, droughts, and economic downturns on this land. We weren't about to let a bunch of suburban bureaucrats take it from us. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a battle that would test our family's resilience in ways we never imagined. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Emma and I worked tirelessly to build our case, Poring over old documents and piecing together the farm's history, we discovered fascinating details about our great-grandfather's original homestead claim and the subsequent generations that had worked the land. Meanwhile, the Whispering Pines Homeowner Association wasn't backing down. They sent a formal notice asserting their claim to the property and outlining a list of violations that needed to be addressed. Everything from our barn to our crops was suddenly deemed non-compliant with their precious homeowner association regulations. I'll never forget the day I received their official violation notice. It was a Friday afternoon, and I'd just finished up some work in the fields when I saw the thick envelope in our mailbox. My hands shook with anger as I read through their laundry list of demands. Cease all agricultural activities within 30 days. Remove all farm equipment and outbuildings not approved for residential use. Install a regulation mailbox and house numbers. Paint the house and homeowner association approved color. Remove all non-ornamental plants and replace with approved landscaping. Construct a privacy fence around the entire property. The list went on and on, each item more ridiculous than the last. They even had the audacity to include a bill for past due homeowner association fees dating back 20 years. I called Emma immediately. "You're not going to believe this," I sputtered, before reading her the entire notice. "Unbelievable," she muttered when I finished. "They're really doubling down on this, aren't they?" "What do we do now?" I asked, still seething. "We stick to the plan," Emma replied calmly. "Our response letter is ready. I'll send it out by certified mail today. It outlines our position, provides evidence of our ownership, and demands they cease and desist all attempts to claim our property." I nodded, then remembered she couldn't see me. Okay, then what?" "Then we wait," she said. "Ball's in their court. They'll either back down or escalate. Either way, we'll be ready." Emma's letter must have struck a nerve because the homeowner association's response came swiftly and aggressively. They threatened legal action if we didn't comply with their demands within 14 days. It was clear they weren't going to back down easily. That's when we decided it was time to bring in the big guns. Emma's colleague, Sarah Martinez, agreed to take our case. She was a fierce property rights attorney with a track record of taking on overreaching homeowner associations and winning. Our first meeting with Sarah was eye-opening. She arrived at the farm one Saturday morning, dressed casually in jeans and a blazer. As we sat around the kitchen table, she examined our documents with a keen eye. "You've got a solid case here," she said, looking up from the papers. "The homeowner association's claim is tenuous at best, fraudulent at worst, but they're counting on you not having the resources or will to fight them." I leaned forward. "So what's our next move?" Sarah smiled, a glint of determination in her eye. "We go on the offensive. They want to play hardball? Let's show them what that really looks like." Over the next hour, Sarah outlined a multi-pronged strategy. We would file a countersuit against the homeowner association for harassment and attempting to defraud us of our property. Simultaneously, we'd petition the county to formally correct the erroneous property description that the homeowner association was using as the basis for their claim. "But here's where we really hit them where it hurts," Sarah said, her voice low as if sharing a secret. "We're going to make this public. Homeowner associations hate bad publicity more than anything. We'll reach out to local media, start a social media campaign, really shine a light on their attempted land grab." Emma nodded approvingly. "I like it. Put them on the defensive for a change." "Exactly," Sarah agreed. "And trust me, once the other Whispering Pines residents hear about this, they'll start asking questions. Nothing scares an homeowner association board more than angry homeowners." As Sarah laid out more details of the plan, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt like we had a real chance of winning. The next few months were a blur of legal maneuvers and public relations efforts. Sarah filed our countersuit, which sent shockwaves through the Whispering Pines community. Suddenly, the homeowner association board found themselves on the defensive, trying to explain to their residents why they were spending association funds to try and seize a century-old farm. Our story caught the attention of a local news station, and soon a reporter was standing in our fields, interviewing me about the homeowner association's attempted land grab. The segment aired during prime time, painting a David versus Goliath picture that had viewers across the county outraged on our behalf. Social media amplified our message even further. Emma set up a Facebook page called Save Cooper Farm that quickly gained thousands of followers. People from all over the country shared their own stories of homeowner association overreach and offered words of support and encouragement. The tide of public opinion was clearly turning in our favor, but the Whispering Pines Homeowner Association wasn't going down without a fight. They hired a high-powered law firm and tried to paint us as stubborn holdouts preventing the community from progress and uniformity. Their smear campaign backfired spectacularly when one of their own board members, a woman named Linda, reached out to us privately. She'd been opposed to the land grab from the start but had been outvoted by Richard and his cronies. "I can't stay silent anymore," Linda told us during a clandestine meeting at a coffee shop in town. "What they're doing is wrong, and I have proof that they knew it from the beginning." Linda provided us with internal homeowner association emails and meeting minutes that showed Richard and Karen had been planning this move for years. They'd known about the property line discrepancy for a long time but had kept it quiet. waiting for the right moment to pounce. Armed with this new evidence, Sarah filed an amended complaint, now including charges of fraud and conspiracy against the homeowner association board members personally. The case was starting to gain traction in the local court, and a hearing date was set for 3 months out. As the court date approached, the pressure on the homeowner association intensified. Residents of Whispering Pines, outraged by the board's actions and the potential financial liability to the community, began calling for Richard and Karen's resignations. It all came to a head at a heated homeowner association meeting 2 weeks before our court date. I decided to attend, wanting to face our opponents directly. The community center was packed, with angry homeowners demanding answers. Richard tried to maintain control, but the crowd was having none of it. "How dare you risk our homes and our finances on this ridiculous land grab?" one elderly resident shouted. "We moved here for peace and quiet, not to be part of some legal battle," another added. Karen attempted to defend their actions. "We were only trying to protect the integrity of our community," she insisted, her voice shrill. I couldn't stay silent any longer. I stood up, and the room quieted. "Protect the integrity of your community?" I said, my voice steady but charged with emotion. "By trying to steal land that's been in my family for over a century? By threatening a working farm that's been here long before any of your houses were even built?" I looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the residents. "I'm not your enemy. My family has been part of this wider community for generations. We've supplied fresh produce to local markets, provided jobs, and preserved green space. How does destroying that protect your community's integrity?" The room erupted in applause. People I'd never met were patting me on the back, thanking me for speaking up. Richard and Karen looked shell-shocked, their carefully constructed narrative crumbling before their eyes. It was Linda who delivered the final blow. She stood up and addressed the crowd. "As a board member, I feel it's my duty to inform you all that this action against the Cooper farm was not just misguided, but potentially illegal." She then proceeded to outline everything she'd told us about the board's long-term plan to seize our land. The meeting devolved into chaos after that. Calls for immediate resignation of the board grew so loud that Richard had to adjourn the meeting. As people filed out, many stopped to offer me and Emma words of support. The next day, we received a call from Sarah. "You're not going to believe this," she said, excitement evident in her voice. "I just got a call from the homeowner association's lawyer. They want to settle." Emma and I exchanged disbelieving looks. "Settle? Settle?" I repeated. "What are they offering?" "Full withdrawal of all claims on your property," Sarah said. "Plus, they're offering to cover all of our legal fees and issue a public apology." I let out a long breath. "Just like that? They're backing down?" "Well, they don't have much choice," Sarah chuckled. "Between the evidence we have, the public outcry, and now their own residents turning against them, they're in an untenable position. Settling is their best option to try and save face." We spent the next week negotiating the terms of the settlement. In the end, we got everything we wanted, a legally binding agreement stating that our property was not and had never been part of the Whispering Pines development, a public apology, and compensation for all the stress and trouble they'd caused. The day they signed the settlement agreement was one of the most satisfying of my life. Richard and Karen, looking deflated and defeated, scribbled their signatures with shaking hands. The new interim board president, a no-nonsense woman named Margaret who'd been elected after the old board's resignation, also signed. "On behalf of the Whispering Pines Homeowner Association, I want to extend our sincerest apologies to the Cooper family," Margaret said, her voice firm and sincere. "The actions taken by the previous board were unconscionable, and we are committed to making this right." As we left the lawyer's office, documents in hand that ensured our farm's safety, I felt a profound sense of relief and triumph. Emma hugged me tightly. "We did it, big brother," she whispered. "We saved the farm." The story didn't end there, though. In the months that followed, our relationship with the Whispering Pines community underwent a remarkable transformation. Under Margaret's leadership, the new homeowner association board took a completely different approach. Instead of trying to force us out, they reached out to collaborate. We worked together to create a small farmers market in the Whispering Pines Community Center, where I and other local farmers could sell our produce directly to residents. We also started a community garden program, teaching interested homeowners how to grow their own vegetables. The Save Cooper Farm Facebook page evolved into a community forum where we shared gardening tips, recipes, and information about sustainable living. Many Whispering Pines residents became regular visitors to our farm, bringing their children to see the animals and learn about where their food comes from. One sunny Saturday about a year after the settlement, we hosted a big community barbecue on the farm. As I stood on the porch watching kids run through the fields and adults chatting over plates of food, I couldn't help but marvel at how things had turned out. Emma sidled up next to me, handing me a cold beer. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked. I smiled, taking a sip, just thinking about how different things could have been. If we hadn't fought back, this place might be a sea of cookie-cutter houses right now. She nodded, looking out over the crowd. "Instead, it's the heart of the community. Funny how things work out sometimes." "You know," I said thoughtfully, in a weird way, "I'm almost grateful to Richard and Karen. If they hadn't tried to take the farm, none of this would have happened. We'd still be the odd ones out, the anachronistic farm in the middle of suburbia. Emma laughed. Leave it to you to find the silver lining in a lawsuit. But you're right. Sometimes you have to fight for what's important. And sometimes, that fight brings people together in ways you never expected. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the fields our great-grandfather had first plowed more than a century ago, I felt a deep sense of pride and belonging. We hadn't just saved a piece of land, we'd preserved a legacy and helped forge a true community. The Whispering Pines Homeowner Association had tried to claim our land, thinking they could bully us into submission. Instead, they'd learned a powerful lesson about the strength of tradition, the importance of community, and the indomitable spirit of a family determined to protect its heritage. As I looked out over the farm that evening, I knew that whatever challenges the future might bring, our roots here were deeper and stronger than ever. The land that had sustained my family for generations would continue to do so, not just for us, but for the entire community that had now become a part of its story. In the end, what had started as a fight over property lines had become something much more meaningful, a testament to the power of standing up for what's right, the importance of community, and the enduring value of connections to the land and to each other. As the last of the guests left that evening, their cars winding down the gravel driveway, I stood on the porch just as I had the morning Richard and Karen first arrived. But this time, instead of dread and anger, I felt only gratitude and hope. Whatever the future might hold, I knew that our family's legacy was secure, and our community was stronger than ever. And as for the Whispering Pines Homeowner Association, well, they learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes, the best way to build a community isn't by enforcing rigid rules or trying to control every aspect of people's lives. Sometimes, it's about embracing diversity, respecting history, and working together to create something truly special. As I turned to head inside, I paused for a moment, my hand on the old wooden door that my great-grandfather had crafted. I smiled to myself, imagining what he would think of all this. I had a feeling he'd be proud, not just of how we'd protected his legacy, but of how we'd used it to bring people together. In the end, we hadn't just saved a farm. We'd cultivated a community, planted seeds of understanding, and harvested a sense of belonging that would nourish us all for years to come. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.